I remember the sound more than the pain, the screech of tires, the thud, the way the world went sideways before my head hit the asphalt. Everything blurred, lights, voices, the metallic taste of blood on my tongue. But through all that chaos, one voice cut through clear as a blade. "Take her to the cheapest ward," my father said flatly. "If she dies, less money wasted." The driver stammered something. He was trembling, panicking, but my dad's tone stayed cold, businesslike, like he was negotiating a grocery bill, not his daughter's life. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My body felt pinned to the ground, my legs numb, my vision tunneling. My mom's face hovered above me for a second. Not with worry, just disgust. "You always bring trouble," she muttered. "Even the road hates you." The driver looked horrified. "Sir, she needs an ambulance." Dad waved him off. "You hit her? Then you pay. But don't waste it on some fancy hospital. She'll live if she's meant to. Otherwise, good riddance." I felt my hand twitch, a pulse of rage deeper than pain. That was the first moment I realized I wasn't scared to die. I was scared to keep living under them. They dumped me in a public ward, broken tiles, flickering lights, nurses who sighed before touching patients. I drifted in and out of consciousness for 2 days. No one from home came back to check. No one called. The nurse told me, "Your father signed the papers and left. Didn't even write an emergency contact." When I woke up enough to sit up, there was a single plastic bag at my bedside. Inside it, my torn clothes, a few coins, and a note in my mother's handwriting. "Don't come home until you can pay your debt." My debt? I almost laughed, but my ribs hurt too much. The doctor, a young woman named Dr. Patel, frowned as she looked at my chart. "You were lucky," she said softly. "Fractures, bruises, but no internal bleeding. You should rest a few weeks." "Can't afford that," I whispered. "Your parents?" I cut her off. "They're not waiting for me." I signed my own discharge papers 2 days later. I hobbled out of that hospital with a cast on one leg, bruises down my back, and the kind of silence that turns into fuel. When I reached the house, it was locked. My mother opened the door halfway, her expression annoyed, not surprised. "Oh, you survived," she said. "Guess the hospital wasn't cheap enough." I stood there on my crutches, the sun burning my face, the pain crawling under my skin. "You left me there," I said quietly. Dad appeared behind her, shirt pressed, tie knotted like nothing had happened. "You shouldn't have been walking in the road. That driver was generous to even stop. I told him to handle it cheap because, frankly, you're not worth a private room." My throat closed. I thought maybe they'd feel guilt just once, but their eyes stayed dry, cold. "I could have died," I whispered. Dad shrugged. "Would have saved everyone trouble." Mom smirked. "At least your sister wouldn't have to share her room anymore." Behind her, my sister Brittany leaned on the stair rail, scrolling her phone. "You still milking that accident thing? God, you're dramatic." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "I just need my things." Dad blocked the hallway. "You don't live here anymore. We already cleared your room, sold your desk to pay the water bill." I couldn't feel my fingers. The pain in my body was nothing compared to the ache spreading in my chest. Where am I supposed to go? Mom tilted her head, fake sympathy. "You're an adult, aren't you? Maybe you'll finally learn not to be such a burden." Brittany laughed. "She'll crawl back, just wait." That night, I slept on a park bench outside our neighborhood. My leg throbbed, my shoulder screamed every time I moved. I stared at the windows of my parents' house, glowing warm with light, like I'd never belonged there in the first place. A stray dog lay down near me. It was limping too, one paw swollen. I reached out slowly, and it rested its head on my arm. That small, broken thing trusted me more than my own family ever did. I whispered to it, "We're both disposable, huh?" Days passed. I found a small job sweeping floors at a corner store. The owner, Mr. Duncan, was a quiet man who didn't ask questions. He just pointed to a mop, nodded, and left me alone. Every time I saw someone walk by with their family, something twisted in my chest. But I stopped crying. Tears didn't suit me anymore. One evening, while I wiped the counters, Mr. Duncan said, "You're limping worse. You should rest." "I can't afford rest," I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "People like them don't realize what they lose until there's nothing left of you for them to use." I didn't answer, but his words stayed with me. A week later, I saw my father at the same grocery store. He was buying imported wine, complaining to the cashier about prices. He didn't even notice me at first. When he did, he smirked. "Guess you're doing charity work now." "I'm working," I said. He leaned closer. "Working? You? The girl who cost me thousands in hospital bills?" "You didn't pay them," I said flatly. He smiled thinly. "Still my fault you got hit. Still my fault you exist. You never change." That night, I stared at the cracked ceiling of my rented room and thought about how much of my life had been built around begging for their approval. Every meal, every apology, every silence. It had all been survival. But something shifted that night. I didn't want survival anymore. I wanted something else. I wanted them to feel the emptiness they'd given me. So I began to plan. Not loudly, not with rage, just quietly, patiently. They thought I'd disappeared into poverty, that I'd fade out like a stain they could forget. But I was still here, watching, waiting. And for once, I didn't need their help to stand. I just needed time, because what I planned next wasn't revenge out of hate. It was justice born from everything they thought I'd never become. And that night, under the flickering bulb of my tiny rented room, I smiled for the first time since the accident, because I finally knew exactly where to begin. I started small, quiet. I didn't want noise. I wanted precision. Every morning before work, I limped past my old house just to remind myself what I was walking away from. The curtains were always drawn, the lawn freshly mowed by someone else, the same car shining in the driveway that had once thrown me onto the road. One afternoon, I saw Dad outside, polishing it, whistling. He caught my reflection in the mirror and froze. "You're still hanging around here?" he said, voice thick with irritation. "I walk to work this way," I said. He smirked. "Maybe you'll get hit again. Then at least you'll learn your lesson." I didn't answer. I just looked at the car. His pride, his obsession, the only thing he ever took care of. I memorized every scratch on it. At the store, Mr. Duncan started letting me work the register. He said, "You're good with people even when they're rude. That's a skill." I nodded, but what I really learned was patience, the kind that burns quietly instead of screaming. A few weeks later, I saw my sister at the cafe across from the shop. She was laughing with friends, showing off a designer purse. When she saw me, her face twisted. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You still alive?" Her friends giggled. "Barely," I said. She leaned closer. "You know what Dad says? You were born unlucky. You attract accidents." I looked at her calm. "Then I guess being near you is dangerous." Her smile faded. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I said softly. "I just don't think about you at all anymore." That silence after I walked away felt like victory. By the next month, I'd saved enough to move into a small apartment behind the store. I cooked my own meals, paid my rent on time, and stopped checking my phone for messages that would never come. For the first time in years, I had peace. Thin, fragile, but real. Then, one evening, Mr. Duncan said, "Someone's looking for you." I turned and saw my mother standing by the doorway. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair wild, her tone shaky. "Your father had an accident," she said. I felt my body go cold. "He crashed the car," she went on. "Insurance won't cover it. We need help. You have savings, right? For all we did for you?" I almost laughed. The irony hit harder than the car ever did. All I said was, "You told me not to come home until I could pay my debt." I did, but I spent it on surviving. Her eyes flickered, confusion, then anger. How dare you talk to me like that? We're your parents. Were, I said. You were. She stepped back, mouth trembling. Your father's hurt? Then take him, I said quietly, to the cheapest ward. Her lips parted. For the first time in my life, she had nothing to say. I closed the store door behind her and stood there for a long time, staring at the night sky. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel proud either. Just free. But something told me this wasn't over yet, because people like them don't break, they beg, and I was ready to watch that happen. The next morning, I walked past their house again, not because I missed them, but because I needed to see what silence looked like from the outside. The car sat in the driveway, crumpled on one side, windshield shattered. Dad's pride was gone, and the house that once gleamed like arrogance looked smaller, almost hollow. 2 days later, they showed up at the store. Mom first, fake smile trembling, eyes darting to the counter. Dad followed behind on crutches, bruises up his arms, neck in a brace. The man who once told a stranger I wasn't worth saving now needed someone, anyone, to help him walk. Evelyn, he said, my name rolling off his tongue like a chore. We came to talk. I didn't move from behind the register. You're blocking the aisle. Mom's voice cracked. Please, we lost everything. The repairs, the bills, your sister moved out. She said we're cursed. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop from laughing. Cursed? Or just getting what you gave? Mr. Duncan came out from the back, saw them, and quietly slipped into his office. He didn't have to say a word. He knew this was my moment. Dad leaned on the counter. You can't keep holding grudges. We're family. I looked straight into his eyes, calm even. Family? I repeated. You told a man not to waste money saving me. You called me a burden while I was bleeding on the road. You sold my room to pay a water bill. You made me pay rent for my own skin. He shifted uncomfortably, jaw tightening. You're exaggerating. Mom whispered, We were just scared. We didn't mean it. Scared of what? I asked. That I'd live long enough to remember it? They both went quiet. For once, no excuses, no blame. Just two people realizing too late that the person they crushed had learned how to stand without them. I took a slow breath and said, You should leave. Mom's hand trembled. Please, Evelyn, we don't have anyone else. I didn't look up. Then I guess you'll learn what alone feels like. They stood there a few more seconds, long enough for me to hear Dad's shallow breathing, the same rhythm I used to hear pacing outside my room before he yelled about bills or failure. Then they left. No shouting, no threats. Just silence and the sound of the bell over the door. Weeks passed. The store got busier. Mr. Duncan offered me a full-time position and later helped me enroll in night classes. He said, You've got a head for numbers. You could run your own business someday. I didn't tell him that I already had one. Revenge, slow and deliberate, disguised as peace. One evening, I got a call from a nurse at the local public hospital. Are you related to a Mr. or Mrs. Hartman? She asked. The name stung for a second, then faded. Not anymore, I said. After I hung up, I sat in my room staring at the quiet glow of the streetlights. I didn't cry. I didn't visit. I didn't tell anyone. Some things don't need an audience. A month later, I walked past the house one last time. Weeds had overtaken the lawn. The mailbox hung loose. The windows were dark. Inside, I could almost see the ghosts of every insult, every laugh, every plate thrown in anger. I left a single envelope on the porch. Inside was a receipt from the hospital. No note, no message. Just proof that even when I owed them nothing, I still had more humanity than they ever showed me. Then I turned and walked away. The night air felt clean, cold, real. My limp was lighter now. My chest for once didn't hurt. And as the wind picked up, I realized something simple but sharp. They had taken everything they could from me, except the power to stop caring. For the first time in my life, that felt like the purest kind of revenge. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.